This message is brought to you in association with our presidential nominee, Chip McCain, the potato of peace, who's our next nomination for the White House, and we're supporting him all the way. Go, Chip. Well, hello. Now, I know you're at least as excited as I am that the International Monetary Fund is holding its annual meeting in Washington at the moment. But just in case you're not following it, a couple of announcements they've made I thought were worthy of note. Now, again, if you don't know what it is, IMF doesn't stand for Impossible Mission Force, the lot out of Mission Impossible, although we probably could do with Jim Phelps and the gang to go and sort the Straits of Hormuz out at the moment, because I'm not entirely sure anyone else could pull it off. The International Monetary Fund was actually part of a series of initiatives by former president Dwight D. Eisenhower, who was the Supreme Allied Commander in the Second World War. When he became president, he was so appalled by what he'd seen in the concentration camps in Germany toward the end of the war that he wanted some initiatives to ensure that the situations, that the antecedents that led to it couldn't evolve again. And he particularly identified the Great Depression, or the financial hardship that came from that, as being one of those things. And the International Monetary Fund was set up there as a kind of a financial buffer to ensure that those situations didn't evolve again. Now, as I say, they've got a meeting going on in Washington at the moment. And one of the key announcements that's come out of that, you may have seen in the news, is that they've said that of all the G7 countries, the wealthiest countries in the world, the UK is probably going to be most vulnerable to the effects of the war in Iran. And the question that's obviously bubbling up in you is why? Principally is that because of shock horror, many decades of underinvestment, we are an energy importer. We're about 50% dependent on imports for energy, 90% of which are oil and gas. Now, we get a big chunk of that from Norway, and we get a big chunk of that from the US, but we also get a very big chunk of it basically from countries on the other side, the wrong side of the Straits of Hormuz at the moment. And what does that mean? Well, what it means is that if your supply is dwindling, it means, and your demand stays the same, it means the costs will go up. And that feeds into the cost of production, the cost of goods and services. It means prices are likely to inflate. That then probably leads to an increase in interest rates, which means costs have gone up, and the cost of borrowing and servicing debt has gone up. And all that is bad for the economy. It tends to be suppressive or even recessive effects for the economy. So what does all that mean for investors? Well, what it probably means is that if this situation in the Strait of Hormuz doesn't get resolved, if Jim Phelps doesn't get sent in with the Iron Force, that prices that are likely to inflate. We could see recessionary pressure in the UK, as I say, and that might have a deleterious effect on UK shares. That implies that we should be much more globally diversified, as indeed we are in our strategy, and that we'd like our fund managers to be taking steps to mitigate some of that, which indeed they are doing with some downside protection. What it also tends to imply is if interest rates are likely to be stable or even go up, that we would have a significant cash hold in the portfolio, which once again we do, provides a rising baseline, but also provides a degree of stability in the portfolios as a whole. An important caveat to all of this, of course, is we don't know what's going to happen. One of the other things that the IMF qualified when they made their statement was that if the situation in Hormuz does get resolved, say, within the next 4 to 6 weeks, it's entirely likely that the economic forces, the fundamentals driving inflation and interest rates, are likely to equalise by the end of the year, and it would actually have no net effect. So the final implication for investors is, because we don't know what's going to happen, and it might all blow over, is that we shouldn't be looking to make any big changes now, but that we might think about where we are in, say, a few months' time when the situation becomes a bit clearer. So there you go, whistle-stop tour of what the IMF is, what it isn't, what it said, and what it means to us. And on that note, we'll see you next time.